Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Charity Rouse. I am the Director of Local History for the Spartanburg County Public Library System. And this is our monthly hybrid genealogy program. Tonight, we will be looking at our NewsBank databases. We're going to look at the Spartanburg Herald Journal access that the Spartanburg Library has. It's available from home with your library card. So we'll look at what that entails and how to search it. And then we will take a brief look at some things available also from NewsBank at the state library. And so hopefully, whether you are local or further afield, you will find searching tips and techniques for your newspaper databases helpful. So if you have a Spartanburg Library card, you're going to want to, or you're in our building, you're going to want to go to spartanburglibraries.org, libraries with an IES, because there are 10 of us in the system, and go to our learning tools. And if you scroll down, you can also go to the A to Z index and choose Herald Journal, but I'll show you the way we're supposed to do it. Scroll down here and in the left-hand column, click News, and you will see that we have 6 news-related resources. We are soon to get a history-related resource called Black Life in America, and that includes African-American newspapers from around the country. So keep an eye out for that. That will probably be in the history tab over here, history subject area versus news. They only let us put things in one. So if it's in the genealogy set, it's not in the news set, and vice versa. Which reminds me that I forgot to pre-select Heritage Hub. Don't let me forget Heritage Hub. So in this news, we have America's News, which is current news, roughly 1980s to the current. It does include some South Carolina papers, and it's 3,600 resources around the country, but it doesn't go back that long. It's got a wide variety of newspapers. And then we have the Herald Journal, 1988 to current. So that's what's in America's News. We have the Historical Herald Journal, and we're going to look at both of these. And then we do have access for the New York Times. And there are a couple hoops that you have to jump through for at-home use of that. And then there is another news thing, opposing viewpoints in context, which I have never used, so I don't know what that all is. So when you click in to this, it will show you, if you're outside of the system, it will ask you for your 14-digit library card number, 21252, whatever the rest of your numbers are. Not your 4-digit PIN, your whole library card number. So this is the 1988 to the present. And I'm just gonna do a search for school. So now this is the problem. Y'all get to see how bad a typer I am. So school bond, was helping somebody do some research on school bonds. And so over here on the left, you can sort by newest, you can sort by oldest. We can see what the 1980s school bonds, 89, the Union County Council has a school bond levy going on. There was a Roebuck school for $7 million. If you go to, oops, nope. want 2000 and 2009, and we're going to hit apply. If you pick one of these decades in the left-hand column, you can then further narrow your search. Recent search I was doing was the patron thought in 2003. Turns out it was passed in November 2002 at voting day in November. And so there was a District 1 school bond, and you get to see a little bit of the title of the article. And then in the right, or when you hover over the blue, you get a little preview snippet of it, so you can often see whether it's what you're looking for. One of the things that happens is, I need to get to the one that I know is going to be the transcript. So sometimes you get the transcript, you get somebody's typed version of it. You don't get a copy of the actual scan of the paper. This will change as they scan more of the newspaper in this time period. But it's one of those things that a lot of people don't like just getting the transcript. They want to see where it was on the page. So we're going to go back here, and we're going to go up here, and I'm going to, let's see. I need to, oops, no. I need to do a date search for 2018 to 2020 and hit apply. And this should take us to those years. Of course, I have nothing, because I had selected 2000 to 2009. When you filter, you got to undo some of the filters. So I'm clearing those filters, and I get a couple of articles here, and you can even tell by the way the preview shows up that this is actually going to be a picture of the paper as it appeared in the paper. So the more recent ones, you get the full page thumbnail over here in the right column, and you can move out and, you know, it's a school bond referendum in Los Angeles, but it appeared in the Spartanburg Herald Journal. So March 12th, 2020. But this gives you the difference between that text transcription and the full picture, full color pages of the paper that we get in the more recent. If you've seen the e-edition of the Herald Journal, if you read any of that online, that's what's going to appear in this database. So I'm going to close out of that, and then I'm going to go over here. So again, this is the Herald Journal current one that we were just in, and I'm trying to think. Let's see if we have any John Smiths come up. Oh yeah, 17,913 results with John and Smith. I didn't think to put it in quotations, Biggest tip, if you are looking for a person, put their name in quotes because you want those words adjacent to each other. So let me go back up here and I'm going to add quotes around John Smith. And again, I'm using this particular database as an example, but this happens in any of the NewsBank databases and really in any newspaper database. You're going to want to do some of these various things because that cut us down from 17,000 to 346. So let's see what John Smith from Daleville, Indiana is doing in our paper. It's an ad for putting your veteran in the paper. So obviously Daleville, Indiana is another place where whoever it is that owns the paper these days has a paper, or at least that's where they found the image for the ad. So let's go back and see what else we have. Okay, we're going to go oldest first and see what 1980 gives us. But let's see, labels become serious business. October 7th, 1988. And textile campaign that was active locally and nationally on the Made in the USA. And John Smith of Kmart on Garner Roads believes in stocking both made in the US and made wherever. So, but you see it highlights it in yellow so that you know where your search term shows up on the newspaper page. So let's move over to on our news subject here. We have that America's News, which is that general wide one from the 1980s to current. We have the Herald Journal Current, which is what we just looked at. And then we have Herald Journal Historical. And again, you can get to all of these from home with your library card. It's the full number. And it comes up, it says it's the Daily Herald here at the top, but it has all three of these sources. So it has the Daily Herald, the Herald Journal from 1982 to 1998, and the Spartanburg Journal and the Carolina Spartan from 1913 to 1982. The Daily Herald starts in 1906. So there is some overlap. The 1982 is because the Daily Herald, which was the morning paper, and the Spartanburg Journal, which was the afternoon paper, merged at the end of September, beginning of October of 1982 to become the Herald Journal. Now, crazy fact, almost this entire period, if not all of that entire period from 1906, and maybe earlier, they always did a combined Sunday Herald Journal issue. They were printed in the same building. The editorial staffs were nominally separate, but they printed a joint Sunday paper. So, I am going to put LeGrand Rouse in quotes and see what comes up. There are multiple of people by that name. They are not related to me that I know of within the last 3 or 4 generations, but the earliest LeGrand was born in Marion County and my Rouses are from Darlington County. So there's a probable connection there somewhere. But let's see, we have 1,700 results, and let's see. Oh yes, one of the LeGrand Rouses was a lawyer and lobbyist, went to the State House. One was a police chief. So, oh, but look. If it would move correctly. Now I lost them on the page. We have wedding announcements. How many of you have looked for wedding announcements and have been frustrated that that is not one of the things that we have historically indexed in our local history indexing that we have done in-house, person by person, through the years? So this is an announcement that Jennifer Gardner and Daniel Morris Rouse, both of Washington, D.C., got married. And you go through and you see that this Rouse was the son of Mr. and Mrs. LeGrand Rouse II, and grandson of Mrs. and the late Mr. LeGrand Rouse of Spartanburg. So you can find with this full text search a lot of things that you couldn't find before. I am looking and I need to go back here. You can find letters to the editor. You can find articles, and you can find, oh, look. Let's see what civic club this one is. It's the Oliver Edwards chapter of the United Daughters of the Confederacy. And one of the co-hostess was Mrs. LeGrand Rouse. We don't know which of the Mrs. LeGrand Rouses, because there's one in every generation, but if you know who you're looking for, it helps you build that family story. You will find church notices, all sorts of things. So these are civic club notes. You've got the In-Depth Garden Club. You've got a Spartanburg High Class of 1938. This is 1989. So, you know, it can help you find really fun things about your people. Okay. Now, here's a notice about the Philharmonic. Let's see. 3 members of the Spartanburg Philharmonic presented a program for the Fountain Inn Music Club. Miss Sharon Rouse was accompanied by her mother, Mrs. LeGrand Rouse. That must be Virginia. She was a music teacher. And I keep getting asked if I'm related, and I wish I were. But anyway, so that is a little bit about how this works. And I'm going to go back here because I want to now, there are sometimes organizations that you want to search for. Bear in mind that sometimes they may be called Kiwanis or Spartanburg Kiwanis Club, and sometimes they may be called Kiwanis Club of Spartanburg. So you're going to want to search both ways. Sometimes it will pick up when there's a word in there or they aren't in that order, but when you're using quotes, often it's exactly that order. So just something to be reminded of. The most recent result here is Clay Turner. Are you gonna load or just preview? Oh, the problems with doing something live cast. But the Reverend Dr. Clay Turner received the Citizen of the Year in 1998. And so sometimes you get a photo of them. So this was not him and his church announcements or anything, but it was coming up because he was honored by the Civic Club. And I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go over here and click oldest. And let's see what that 1910s decade was. So it was in 1919, which was when the Spartanburg, Kiwanis Club of Spartanburg was founded. So if this database had been available to me when I was researching for 100 years of Spartanburg Kiwanis Club, it would have made my life so much easier. I did a lot of things the hard way, and now I've got to go back and redo some stuff because all of a sudden I've got a lot more research information available to me. So this is talking about the charter night that will be happening in October of 1919. And so they met at the Cleveland Hotel. So if we had done a search for the Cleveland Hotel, we would have seen all of the meetings that were advertised as meeting in one of their meeting rooms. You would get all of the advertisements for the hotel as well. So you can go through, and if I click on the next page in the page thumbnails over here, theoretically, come on, it's supposed to move to the next page. Okay. And so you can then use the tools up here, and you can zoom in using the little plus sign, and the minuses zoom out. And so let's see, we have English model shoes for men from the Globe Fine Footwear, where thousands buy their shoes. We have the Goldberg's Tailor. We have men's jackets being advertised. We have a prominent lady who speaks at the YWCA, Miss Young, recently returned from France. So you get all the news. And interesting advertisements as well. When you find an article that you want to save, I'm going to back out of this a little bit, although this one's not going to be the world's best of the examples, because this is one of those articles that's like almost a full column of the paper. But if I just wanted to save that, I can go up here to the little clip. I can hit clip. I can select clip to download or print. And then I can come over here and drag this box around and make this box longer if I would like to do that. And you can play around with it more than I'm going to do here. And then you can either save it to your Google Drive, or you can download the PDF, or you can print it. If you are academically inclined, you can include a citation of a various number of citation formulations. I have a soft spot in my heart for Turabian. It's the one I had to use in grad school. And it will download the clip, and then you will be able to open the PDF and save it or print it. And it will print with the citation at the top of the page under the NewsBank banner. And sometimes you do have to play with the size of how large it gets, because if you go to print this, it might be more than one page because it's pretty large. And so what I would end up doing is going up here in the PDF, clicking my printer, and letting it work. and it will estimate how many pieces of paper it will be. And this made it onto one, so it wasn't as large as it looked in my screen. But you get the full citation. It will tell you what paper it's from, no matter what. One warning about this program is we are used to having our pages be 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, or A4, A1, A1, A2, A3, B1, 2, 3, 4. They just number it 1 through however many pages. So if you want to cite the page as it did actually appear in the paper, make sure you look at that page number and put it in your file name when you save that document. However, all of the benefits of the online searching for the newspaper, I will deal with that little hiccup because I can get a lot of information out of here. Of course, I'm not hooked up to a printer, so I'm not going to print. So if you want to email it to yourself, this is sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, often gets caught by your spam filter by your email provider, or in our case, by 4 layers of providers for our internet access and things. So you will put a to address and a from email address. You will put something in the message and then you click send, and theoretically it will arrive as a link in your email. And then when you click that link, it will open this up, whether you are in our system or not. Or at least that is how it's supposed to work. Usually it does, sometimes it doesn't. So just know technology is our friend, but on occasion, it still likes to do its own thing. If you just want a citation, you can export the citation for that with the little quote with a C. If you need to know what page you're on, what paper you're on, that kind of thing, we're searching in just 3 incarnations of the same historic paper. But in some of these other databases, they have lots of papers. Print is pretty much the same as flip. You can download the page. It will allow you to either download a part of the page or the whole page. And then you can save it to your folder if you're logged into an account here. You can copy the link to the page. Again, theoretically, you copy the link, you can email it to yourself or whatever, and then you can get back to it. When possible, just download it, print it, save it to a PDF. It will cause fewer headaches that way. So let's go back here. Before I leave the Spartanburg County specific NewsBank databases, I want to show you one really cool one that we have. It is newspaper based, but I'm going to unclick news and click genealogy, and not just because I'm a genealogist. In this is where you find our Ancestry Library Edition, Family Search Link, Find My Past here at headquarters. That's a database, genealogy database out of UK. Fold 3 you can get to from home or the library. That's a lot of military records, not so much the 20th century conflicts, but some information about 20th century conflicts. But down here we have Heritage Hub, which we'll get to in just a second. And then just so you know, our Spartanburg County Public Library death notices and obituaries, that is our internal index. It is only an index. It will give you the citation in the paper, and then you can go to the paper and look it up. If you're having trouble that you're searching for Peggy Smith, and lo and behold, the obituary is under Margaret Ann Jones Smith, Peggy's no longer not in there, but everybody knew her as Peggy, then you might not find the person you're looking for in that initial newspaper search. Do look for women with all maiden names or all maiden and married names. But we do, from the physical newspaper, index the newspaper. The older papers, we do index from the microfilm, so it should match what we have on file and what we have in the room. But Heritage Hub is another product from NewsBank, and it is nationwide, a whole multiple thousand newspapers. So not all newspapers participate. And let's see. Oops. And it helps if you put the correct part of the name in the correct. Okay, and okay, and let's see. We'll see. This is my grandfather. I don't know whether he has okay, he does not have an obituary that is covered in a paper that is covered by this database. So let's see if not sure, but that's a good option. Let's put initial and see if there are any WE Lawhorns. Nope. So let's go here and Alan. Let's see if any of the Furman Allens have. So, well, now you notice here we've got, see, I was thinking Furman Allen as one of my grandfather's cousins, surname Allen, but notice that this has Mr. Furman Allen Kramer. So, sometimes you have people who are named after other people, George Washington Carver. And so you're going to get obituaries for people with that name contained in their name. Let's see if, oh, okay. Sometimes you get family relationships over here in the right-hand column. Sometimes you do not. It depends. So this is somebody from Columbus, Ohio, that Allen Furman, so probably this was Allen and then Furman Allen, not that he had Allen twice in his name. The search and how it's printed can be very literal. But he was age 100. He passed away peacefully Sunday, February 28th, 2016. He was born in Allenville, Wisconsin. And you see it's also picking up on Clara S. Furman in parentheses, Allen. So again, it's just picking up Furman and Allen next to each other in the obituary. Okay, and here on Jack Allen, one of the many Jack Allens here, Jack Allen Furman. Furman is a surname, not Furman as a first name, but you get the family relationships that have been populated. And so his father was George Furman, his mother was Mary Furman, his wife was Iris, his daughter was Leslie. You can click more and you get Kim, son-in-law, sister, brother-in-law. So sometimes you can get a really good snapshot of it without going into the actual obituary to see, is this the person I'm looking for? Sometimes it's pretty obvious, no, it's not. And sometimes you have to dig a little bit. And the Heritage Hub, so let's see. Trying to pick some names that are not quite as common. So for Lewis Akehurst, I have 6 results. Shows my father's first cousin who died in St. Petersburg, Florida. And so you get an obituary for him there. You get an obituary for his son in 1992. So 2004, 1992, you get his father, Pop, who died in, actually, take that back, his grandfather, Junior and the third are actually the third and the fourth. If you're gonna use those numbers, make sure you're corrected as to who the first of that name was. This was actually, this is 1907. I'm not sure why Pops didn't show up in 1970. But this is Pop's dad. He died at age 48 years. And it is in the Richmond Times-Dispatch. So my family only knew of them when they moved to Norfolk. So, and married into the family. So Lewis W., the son, is the one who married my great aunt. So sometimes you can find fun stuff when you're looking through. But this is, as I said, specifically obituaries. There have been times when NewsBank has been very crafty and they have removed all of the obituaries from the paper. Like when they were doing the type transcript years, they removed all the obituaries and packaged them in a separate product, which is now Heritage Hub, used to be called America's Obituaries, so that they could sell a second database to libraries. Database vendors are very crafty and they are out to get every penny out of all of us they can. I mean, you know, they are putting the work together to scan all of these newspapers. However, it's a little bit annoying when you're the one having to budget to pay for them and you have to steward taxpayer funds. And we don't like to pay lots and lots and lots of money for things that we don't need to be paying for. So, in our final 15 minutes, I'm going to shoot over to the South Carolina State Library. If you do not have a South Carolina State Library card and you live in the state of South Carolina, run to your computer and apply for a South Carolina State Library card, because you can get some really cool things online in their database collection from your comfortable chair in Spartanburg or wherever around the state you live. If you do not live in South Carolina, check your own state library, because your money is going to fund these resources and not enough people know about them or use them. Now, typically you have to be a state resident to get the card. Library of Virginia used to allow out-of-state residents to access their Virginia newspapers and things, and the database vendors said, nope, you may pay us, but you're not going to be, we're going to cut you off and not let you get the database anyway. Might have been slightly empty threat, but terms and conditions, copyright restrictions, libraries have to pay attention to these things. And so out-of-state library card holders can no longer access those for Library of Virginia. If you do get a $35 out-of-state card from Spartanburg County Public Libraries, you can access our databases for the year that your $35 out-of-state card is active. You can come check out physical books, but you have to return them here too. So at the South Carolina State Library, in their A to Z databases list, which is a little finicky to find, but just get to A to Z databases, go to the ends, and you get NewsBank, America's newspapers. You get this historical Black newspaper collection that they have resources for. We are getting, hopefully in July, if not a little trial before that, Black Life in America, which includes a lot of these newspapers. So keep an eye out for that. But if you click on the NewsBank America's newspapers, you get to this screen, and the search bar should look remarkably familiar. You see the enter any keyword, such as name of inner topic, search, NewsBank. If you scroll down on the side here, you will see that they have the Charleston Post and Courier Historical and Current Collection, which is like our Spartanburg Herald Journal collection, but for the Charleston Post and Courier. Ron, this could have saved us a lot of a fee for the 24-hour access that we paid for a couple of years ago. They also have The State, which is published out of Columbia, and and then they have additional papers for South Carolina. Now, the additional papers for South Carolina are primarily those that are current, but not all of them. So they have a mixture. They have a couple of issues of the Anti-Monarchist and South Carolina Advertiser from 1811, published in Edgefield. They have various papers from around the state. So again, your mileage may vary on what you're looking for, but it is a great place and it is free to you, the patron. So, and I logged in, they've got 124 sources. And let's see. Yeah, they don't have anything that covers Spartan. Well, if I could type. So they do have the current version of Herald Journal, so 1988 to current. And then they have a web-only source from WSPA, a lot of which is probably still on WSPA's website, but this may be older material that isn't still on their website, but has been captured along the way. So, as I said, you have the State Historical and Current Collection. Let's see. Let's see if this will pull that up. And it goes all the way back to 1891. So it is their historical collection. So this does catch that, oops, Allen Sisters is Allen, sisters. So it's in a list of survivors. And again, this one happens to be in the typed era, transcript era, as opposed to the full text version. But Brother Allen, semicolon, sisters, Marcel Riley. So that wasn't what I was looking for. But we will see. I'm actually gonna, I think, let's see, we're gonna, okay. I want 50s and 60s. Thank you very much. So you can narrow your time, and I'm going to apply and see how many articles are in the 1950s and 60s. and it is just 2 articles. And this doesn't pull up what I was hoping it would. So let's see. Okay. Did I spell that incorrectly? I probably spelled it incorrectly. Yep. So for women, sometimes you have to add the married name. Sometimes you catch it with the maiden name. That was her, but that's okay. But if you don't have the quotation marks, you get lists with people's names in all places. So, which is not necessarily what we want, but it can sometimes help. But I am going to see if that article shows up if I do it this way. I found a really cool article not long ago about my great-grandmother's sisters who had been running the boarding house in Latta for a long time. And you can see that you can get a lot of obituaries in the full image. So again, these newspaper databases at sometimes really try to cut the obituaries out and sell them to you separately, but other times you get to see the obituaries. And this is not going to pop up what I wanted it to pop up, but that's okay. You get the idea. And then just to pop over again to show this is various of the papers that became the Charleston Post and Courier. And so my great-grandmother had obituaries. She died in Norfolk, Virginia, but she had obituaries that appeared both in the state newspaper and in the Charleston Post and Courier, because they were specialed from Latta and Dillon papers to those larger papers. So one thing to remember, just because the little paper that you think is where your ancestor or your person's obituary or article might have been, check neighboring papers, because just like we have the AP Newswire now, which has been around for a long time, they would send prominent news of prominent people various places. So sometimes you get lucky, and even though that local paper that you need, like I was referring, Ron and I were working on a research project for which the Spartanburg paper does not exist because we just nothing survived to be microfilmed. And we were able to find articles that quoted most, if not all of report of a court case. And the Charleston News and Courier, whichever Post and Courier, whatever one we found, had like almost a full transcript. It was fantastic. So Spartanburg paper didn't survive. We found additional information, not the full article, but additional information in about 10 other papers around the state. And if it was that prominent in South Carolina, it was probably covered outside of South Carolina, but we were just looking at the South Carolina database. So know that sometimes you may find papers in locations that you're not expecting them to be in. I know in Virginia, and because I don't have access to the Virginia papers on these particular databases. But my grandmother's obituary, we paid to put it in the local large paper, the daily paper, the weekly paper in her little county next door to where where I grew up, where the larger paper is, and the Roanoke Times, which was closer to all of her family, lived closer to Roanoke. So we paid for that to be in. So sometimes you have to think about where the family is living, where that might be, or whether it was a prominent enough news story to get wider coverage. Very seldom do people from here get a New York Times obituary, but I am told that Jerry Richardson, who died this past week, did get a New York Times obituary, and they used one of our photos. So we got a call from the New York Times. Hey, we want to use this specific photo. Sure, we'll scan it. Hopefully they credited us. I haven't looked. But again, sometimes you might find somebody in an unexpected newspaper, but these are tools to start looking, tools to give you some resources, and a lot more tools than we had 2 years ago even, because the Charleston News and Courier, Post and Courier, why am I saying news? Post and Courier, that collection is relatively new at the state library's database list. They've had the state newspaper for quite a few years, the historical state newspaper. So they have invested a lot of money into these newspaper databases. We invested a pretty good chunk of money into the Herald Journal collection, but it is paying off every time somebody finds the article they're looking for. So we are happy to have that available to you. So I will open this up to questions either in the room or on Zoom. Let me see if I can find our chat thing. So on the Zoom, folks, if you will type your questions into the meeting chat. I don't know if you can see the meeting chat on the screen if you're on Zoom from my screen, but the people in the room with me can see your questions. People in the room, do you have questions, thoughts, comments, something I didn't cover that you would wish I would have? I haven't found some of the quotes work really well. I have not found some of the other old school Boolean search terms like A and D in capital letters or OR in capital letters. I haven't found those to work particularly well with this, but I haven't played around with them a lot. So let me know what works for you. It's not as robust a search as Google is, but it is definitely better than going to the microfilm and reading months and months and months of paper. You can at least scan through and narrow your target. You know, it works.
Charity, yes. It's me, Cheryl. I don't have a particular question, but I was just going to say from my own personal experience for myself and working with patrons is it takes a lot sometimes. You got to remember things like quote marks. And the older the newspaper is, most men didn't go by their full names. They were MJ Jones or whatever, using initials. And females, more often than not, were known back in the older papers as Mrs. MJ Jones. So you can't look up Betty Jones. You probably have to look up Mrs. So-and-so Jones. And just keep at it. And especially the names are the easiest thing. Sometimes trying to find the wording for an article is harder. A gentleman came in the other day and he was looking for a state championship football game from the 1980s, and we typed in everything.
Yep. And you know, sometimes you have to try various things to see what you can figure out. I do have to say, with the last name Rouse, R-O-U-S-E. In the early 20th century, you have a lot of what they called serial stories, S-E-R-I-A-L, not the grain, not what you eat for breakfast, but serialized stories. And let me tell you, early 20th century, they really liked to rouse the emotions. And it's so frustrating. But also, house shows up. Depending on how the optical character recognition happened, sometimes H instead of R. And so house is a very common word in newspapers. You get all of the real estate listings.
Charity, you do have a question.
Yes.
Do you see it in the chat or do you want me to read it?
I see it in chat.
Okay.
Where could we find a list of newspapers, including smaller ones that might go beyond this NewsBank list, to know where to search further? The best place to do that is at the Library of Congress. And let me get over here, and it's called Chronicling America. And this is from the Library of Congress, and it is a very large database of public domain newspapers that someone in various states have compiled, or that they have had permission from the publisher. So you see some dates go all the way up to 1963. I will say it is a fabulous resource, but it is the search interface is even more clunky than NewsBank's. And so it is great, but it can be a little hard to search. They also have the U.S. Newspaper Directory 1690 to present. Switching my digits there. And this lists all known published newspapers. It does not necessarily tell you whether any exist or are available digitally or anything like that, but it is a list of 157,526 newspapers. So if you're looking for a newspaper and you don't know what was published in that town at that time, this would be a good place to start. And then once you know the name of the paper in the time period that you're looking for in the location, then you can go search these other sites. NewsBank is a database vendor that libraries work with. Newspapers.com is associated with Ancestry. Greenville, I believe, has a newspapers.com library edition. The Greenville paper is available on newspaper.com. They have like 2 years of Inman Times or something available for Spartanburg County, which isn't even enough to make me want to talk to the service rep, because it will be very expensive to get that for the library system, and it's just not enough reward for our dollars at this time. GenealogyBank is I'm not sure that I don't think it's associated with NewsBank. It sounds like it should be, but that is another genealogy vendor that does have newspapers accessed. If you're looking in New England, particularly Fulton postcards, something like that. There's a guy who solo funds it himself, has put hundreds of thousands of New York and New England newspapers on this website. And it's Fulton something. It started out as a postcard collection that had some newspapers. Newspapers have kind of taken it over. And last time I tried to search it, the searching was a little weird there. But if you're looking in that region, that's going to be one that you might see come up. So those are some other places to look. If you are really stumped in this list on Chronicle, on Library of Congress doesn't tell you, I would always contact the local library closest to that town. You might have to look at the system and see where the local history room is. If not, just call and ask for the reference desk and just ask, hey, can you tell me what the historic newspaper was? Do you happen to have it available either online or in your room? Is it possible for you to do an obituary lookup of name, date, time frame? Some reference staff are able to do that, some are not, but they're always able to at least tell you what services they can offer. We'll do an obit lookup here, maybe even 1 or 2, 3. Don't send us 50, max 10 at a time, and do send $5 an obit if you're sending us 10. 1 or 2 or 3 at a time. Right now we can accommodate that, but our official policy says $5 an obit, and we just haven't changed it. So it's just one of those things that, you know, unfortunately, we have some people who have tried to take advantage of our staff time and good nature to do all of their genealogy for them. After a while, it becomes better to just spend the money and come visit us because it's cheaper. But that's okay. Are there other questions?
Nope.
Yeah, I didn't have any good initial examples, but they do exist. Also, if you're looking for William, do search for WM period, Joseph, JOS period, James is JAS, and believe me, you'll get both results with the OCR of older newspapers. So the optical character recognition or machine read of the newspapers is improving every day, but sometimes it's just weird because newspapers use a lot of different fonts. So, yeah. Are there any other online things? Well, we're glad that everybody joined us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you next month for DNA basics for genealogists. And we'll talk through pros and cons of some of the DNA testing. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will get this posted hopefully later in the week, but we are dependent on someone else in another department to get it posted. So thanks so much. Cheryl, you can stop the recording.
Thank you.
Thank you.